beautiful hexagonal patterned columns that are not connected to each other. He postulates that they are tree stumps, that they are silicon-based tree stumps from an age of giants, from an age before us when there were giant trees, there were giants everything. And at first glance, that looks insane. I mean, it sounds crazy. But from the things that I know about our reality and the place that we live in, this planet or flat earth or convex or concave or whichever you guys want to subscribe to, I know that we are a silicon abundant planet. Okay, one of the supplements that I actually use is called diatomaceous earth. Diatomaceous earth is the shells of diatoms that have been deposited on the bottom of oceans layer after layer for millions of years until they form these sediment deposits of 80 to 90% silica. Okay, and this is all over the planet. The silica is one of the most abundant minerals or elements on our planet. So when they say like gigantism and things like that, people now, giant skeletons, they're like, oh, that's impossible. Or when we hear about the giants in our mythology, that they can only be stories. I don't look at it that way. I look at it as an explanation of something in the past, a story based off of something. Because in Nevada, we have quartz everywhere. Quartz is silica. Okay, quartz is dirty silica, basically. And in Nevada, we also have Lovelock Caves, which is up in northern Nevada. It's a cave. Well, it's a system of caves, basically, that the Paiute Indians and some other tribes have a legend that they trapped these red-haired giants into this cave because the giants were causing trouble and killing their livestock and warring and all of this stuff. So all the tribes in the area kind of made a coalition with the Paiutes here and drove the giants into a cave and then set a fire in front of the cave, which drove the giants back farther into the cave, and then they died of asphyxiation. And that's the end of the red-haired giants that lived in the western United States from the story. So 75 years later, after Sarah Winnemucca writes this story in her memoirs or so, some farmers are in these caves actually pulling bat guano out for their fields when they discover pottery, when they discover these skeletons of beings that are 8-9 feet tall. And we all know, anybody that watches what they call conspiracy videos, that the Smithsonian has its hand in covering up discoveries that don't fit with the accepted view of America. They've covered up the things with the Vikings in the Northeast, and they've covered up the discoveries of other giant skeletons. And just like they've somewhat done with this, and they turn it from a legend from the Paiutes to a fairy tale, basically. And the Paiute Indians believe this is truth. They believe this is a real event, as real things that happen. And I have no reason to think that they were lying. I always thought that there was a possibility of some other form of life based on a different molecule, not based off of carbon. We are all carbon-based life forms, and everything in our reality, basically, every life form is a carbon-based life form. But then you have silicon right underneath carbon, which would lend itself to a far more complex organism. Silicon is like a crystal, and that immediately makes me think of the Shining Ones. There were always stories in our mythology, in every culture, of giants, of the light beings, the shining ones. In Hindu, you have Shiva. They have all these blue gods. They're not white or brown or copper colored like humans are now, but completely different color. Even the tall whites, like the completely pale, like almost shining blonde-haired tall whites, all the Pleiadians or whatever they call them, whatever mythos that you happen to look at, there is going to be a representation of what I would call like a shining one, a shining being. And so it doesn't seem to me that this person's idea that the remnants of this lost age, this lost golden age, could be all that's left is the stumps of these giant trees. And I don't see that as being impossible. Even mainstream science doesn't see silicon life forms being impossible. Okay? In our history, I'd say our prehistory, through our fossil records and things, we can find examples of gigantic, 300 million years ago or whatever they want to say, the concentration of oxygen was much higher in our atmosphere, which lends itself to a far more efficient organisms. So, like this one right here was a giant prehistoric dragonfly. But insects basically breathe through their skin. So with the higher concentration of oxygen, they are able to grow far, far larger than they do now. I'm talking about like bird-sized dragonflies. And there's fossil records of this. There have been numerous scientific experiments of controlled environments with higher concentrations of oxygen and things that show that life does flourish with the higher concentration of oxygen. So who is to say that in this golden age, in this past golden age, because through all of the new agey stuff, they want to talk about how we've descended down from the golden age, the silver, bronze, and the iron age, and now we're coming back up. We're on our way back to the golden age. Who's to say that in this golden age that they speak of in the past, that these life forms weren't silicon-based? That the Elohim, the Watchers, the Archons, the makers, whatever you want to call them, who's to say that they weren't of a completely different structure than what we understand as life, and which would be far harder for a carbon-based life form, for a being like us, to explain when they don't understand chemistry and carbon versus silicon. Okay, how would they explain it? They were shining giants. They were giant shining gods. But to me, it's just another life form. It would just be the Watchers. That's what I see as these silicon-based life forms. And in the Bible, I mean, this is just a WordPress site. There's thousands, millions of different translations, but it's not something that is not been said. Okay, that about the shining ones. Okay, the use of the word Elohim, things like that. So when I hear about these silicon-based trees, it just more affirmed, gives more credence to the idea, to the possibility that at an age before man, okay, before the age of man, there was an age of something greater than us. We see it in the megalithic structures across our planet. There had to have been something greater, smarter, larger than we are, to have done the things that have stood the test of time that we cannot create. We can't create things that will survive like some of these megalithic structures survive. And I really like this guy's video. I think he may be onto something with another outlook for our reality, because no one knows the truth. No one, and no one ever will know the 100% truth. Okay, the only one that knows that is God, or the God, or whatever it is, the Matrix, the programmer, whatever put us here is the only